Millionaire found his maid. Studying at midnight. What he did next changed her life forever. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The mansion stood silent, its vast halls a burden Ethan Walker carried alone. His footsteps tapped on marble, sharp in the dark, as sleep slipped away again. Grief clung to him, a shadow no wealth could lift. He wandered past tall windows, their glass cold, the emptiness pressing like a cage. Drawn by a faint glow, he drifted toward the kitchen. The hour late, the world hushed. A single lamp burned on the counter, its light like a gentle vow. Grace Miller sat hunched over a textbook, her braids slipping over one shoulder. Her fingers traced lines of text, lips murmuring terms, anatomy, physiology, dense and unyielding. She didn't hear Ethan's approach, lost in her focus, a world apart from the housemaid who swept his halls. He paused in the doorway, breath catching. Grace, always a quiet presence, was transformed here. Fierce, unguarded, her brow creased with resolve. His chest tightened, a pang sharp and new. The mansion's weight loomed heavier, its silence too vast for one man's sorrow. He stepped forward, floor creaking. Grace's head snapped up, eyes wide. "Mr. Walker!" She shoved the book shut, cheeks flushing. "I'm sorry, No," Ethan said, voice low. "Don't." He nodded at the book, its cover worn, pages marked. "Studying?" She nodded, hands folding tightly. "Yes, sir. For a medical program, an entrance exam." Her words were clipped, guarding a deeper truth. Ethan pulled out a chair sitting across from her. The clock ticked. 2:14 a.m. "Medical program," he echoed. "A doctor." Grace's gaze flicked to the book, then back. "I want to be." Her voice steadied, a quiet fire beneath. "To help people who need it." He leaned forward, elbows on the counter. "Big dream." His eyes searched hers, catching a depth he couldn't name. Resolve, yes, but a shadow like a vow unspoken. She gave a small smile, fleeting. "It's all I have." Ethan's chest stirred, her words kindling a warmth he'd forgotten. He stood, moving to the kettle. "Tea?" he asked, already filling it. The act felt right, a tether to this moment. Grace hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." The kettle hummed softly, the tea's sharp scent rising as he poured. He set a cup before her, its warmth seeping into his hands, grounding him. They sat in silence, the clock's rhythm constant. Ethan sipped, the tea's heat settling his nerves. "How long have you been at this?" he asked. "Years," Grace said softly. "Nights after work." She glanced at the clock, wincing. "I should keep going." "Don't let me stop you." Ethan's tone was gentle, but he lingered, watching her reopen the book, her finger finding her place. The lamp framed her, a portrait of quiet defiance. Minutes passed, the silence comfortable. Ethan's mind drifted, his fiancée's laughter, now gone, the mansion's halls too wide without her. He pushed the thought down, focusing on Grace. "Every night like this?" he asked. "Most." She didn't look up, but her voice softened. "It's worth it." He nodded, her conviction tugging at him. "You sound sure." Grace's pen paused. She met his eyes and the air stilled. "I have to be," she said, her voice a whisper, heavy with a loss she didn't name. Ethan's heart skipped. He wanted to ask more, to know the weight she carried, but her gaze dropped to the page. The moment slipped, like a breeze through city streets. He drained his tea standing. "Good luck, Grace," he said, voice rough, "with the exam." "Thank you, Mr. Walker." She smiled, faint but true, and returned to her work. Ethan left the kitchen, the glow fading. Lila, the other housemaid, passed him in the hall, her smirk quick. "She's a good one," she said, and Ethan nodded, cheeks warm. As he climbed the stairs, Grace's words echoed, carrying a secret, a shadow half seen in twilight's hush. The mansion woke to a hush, its vast halls swallowing sound. Sunlight sliced through tall windows, sharp on marble. Grace moved swiftly, dustcloth in hand, polishing banisters with care. Her steps were quick, but her eyes carried last night's weight, hours over textbooks, her vow burning. Ethan watched from the study's doorway, coffee cooling in his grip, the mansion's emptiness a quiet ache. She hummed a tune, soft as a constant pulse, unaware of his gaze. Grace's words, "I have to be," had kept him awake, their weight lingering like a half-heard vow. Now, seeing her work, her braids swinging, he felt a pull, sharp and new. She was more than the housemaid fading into corners, a flame, constant, hidden. The mansion's silence pressed, its rooms too vast for his grief. The cook, Maria, hummed in the pantry, her voice a faint echo as Ethan passed. The mansion alive but distant. Grace knelt to wipe a table, and a small photograph slipped from her apron, landing face up. Ethan's breath caught. A young Grace, smiling wide, beside a man with her warm eyes. Her father, he knew, the resemblance clear. She didn't notice, her humming unbroken. Ethan stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Grace?" She turned, startled. "Mr. Walker." Her smile was quick, polite. Then her gaze fell to the photo. Her face tightened and she snatched it up, tucking it into her apron. "Sorry, I didn't see that. No harm done." Ethan's voice was soft, but his eyes lingered on her hand, clutching the photo like a secret. "Your father?" Grace's fingers stilled. She nodded barely. "Yes." The word was sharp, a door closing. He wanted to press, to know the shadow in her eyes, but her posture, shoulders drawn, gaze low, stopped him. Instead, he gestured to the table. "Missed a spot," he said, a half smile easing the tension. She laughed, small and bright, and resumed polishing. Ethan retreated to his study, but the photo stayed with him, her father's face, her silence, a puzzle he couldn't solve. Lila, the other housemaid, passed him in the hall, her eyes sharp. "Caught you staring?" she teased, smirking. "She's something, isn't she?" Ethan's cheeks warmed. "She works hard," he said, dodging, and Lila chuckled, moving on. That night, the kitchen glowed, its lamp a constant beacon. Grace sat at the counter, textbook open, pencil scratching notes. Ethan entered, kettle in hand, their ritual a constant thread. "Tea?" he asked, setting cups down with a soft clink. "Please," Grace said, glancing up. Her eyes were tired, but her smile was warmer, softer. He poured, the tea's warmth seeping through the cups, settling his hands. They sipped in silence, the clock ticking past midnight. Ethan's gaze drifted to her book, margins crowded with notes. "How's it going?" he asked. "Hard," she said, her voice low. "But I'm getting there." She tapped her pencil, a nervous beat. "You don't have to stay, Mr. Walker." "Ethan," he corrected, leaning back. "And I want to." He meant it. These moments, brief and quiet, felt like breath after years of drowning. Grace's lips quirked. "Ethan, then." She returned to her book, her shoulders easing, the space between them softening. He watched her work, her brow furrowed, lips mouthing terms. His mind drifted to his fiancée, her laugh, her fading voice, the hospital's hum. His chest tightened, but Grace's presence dulled the ache, like a light cutting fog. He sipped his tea, the warmth grounding him. "Family keeps you up late?" he asked, testing the waters. Grace's pencil paused. She looked at him, eyes searching, then away. "Just me," she said. "My family's far off." Her voice was constant, but the photo's shadow hung in her words. Ethan nodded, sensing the boundary. "Mine too," he said, though his family was long gone. The words felt raw, a crack in his walls. Grace met his gaze, something passing between them, grief, recognition. She didn't speak, but her eyes held his, soft as twilight's hush. The kettle's hum faded, breaking the moment. Ethan stood, rinsing his cup. "Don't stay up too late," he said, voice rough. "I won't," Grace replied, already back to her notes. Ethan left, the kitchen's glow fading. The mansion's weight pressed, its silence too vast. The photo haunted him, her father's face, her silence. Her humming echoed, a melody he couldn't shake. The truth of her pain stayed unspoken, like a song caught in the throat. The kitchen glowed soft, its lamp a gentle promise. Grace sat at the counter, textbook open, but her gaze drifted to the window where dawn's gray lingered. Her hands, usually steady, traced the wood's grain, her braid fraying. Ethan stood at the kettle, the hum soft as he poured, his movements sure. Their nightly tea was a tether, pulling them through the mansion's hush. Maria's faint humming drifted from the pantry. A butler's footsteps echoed faintly down the hall, the mansion stirring as the world quieted. But tonight the air felt heavy, like a vow held too long. Ethan slid a cup toward Grace, porcelain clinking. "You're quiet," he said, settling across from her, his eyes searching. She blinked, fingers tightening on her pencil. "Tired," she said, voice thin as dawn's edge. Her gaze stayed low, hiding something deeper. He sipped his tea, its warmth settling his hands, grounding him. The photograph, her father's face, her silence, lingered in his mind. He'd seen that weight before, in his own eyes after loss. "Long day," he pressed, tone light. Grace nodded, eyes on her cup. "Always." She flipped a page, but her hands trembled, betraying her. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on the counter. "You don't have to talk," he said, "but you're carrying more than that book." Her gaze flicked up, startled, then softened. The clock's tick filled the silence, constant as a pulse. She set her pencil down, hands folding tightly. "It's my father," she said, voice barely a whisper. "He died, years ago." Ethan's chest tightened. He nodded, waiting, his silence an open door. Grace's eyes drifted to the lamp, its glow warm as a gentle promise. "He was sick," she said. "Lungs. We couldn't afford a doctor, not a real one. He just faded." Her voice broke, a crack in a constant wall. "I was 16. I swore I'd make it right. For him, for others." Ethan's chest ached. He saw her father, wasting, gasping, forging her fire. He poured more tea, the kettle's hum soft, his care clear in the careful pour. "That's why the books," he said softly. "The exam." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Every night I see him. I can't let him down." Her fingers traced the textbook's edge, tender and fierce. Ethan swallowed, his grief stirring, his fiancée's frail hands, the hospital's hum, hope fading. "I lost someone too," he said, voice rough. "My fiancée. Cancer. I thought I could save her. Money, doctors. It wasn't enough." Grace's gaze met his, wide and searching. The kitchen shrank, the world narrowing to their shared breath. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words heavy, like a stone smoothed by rain. He shrugged, a half-smile masking the ache. "It's why I'm here, hiding in this place." He gestured to the mansion, its halls too vast for his grief, a weight he hadn't named until now. Grace's lips parted as if to speak, but she stopped. She reached for her tea, fingers brushing the cup he'd filled. The gesture felt close, a thread weaving between them. "You're not hiding now," she said, voice constant. "You're here with me." Ethan's heart skipped. He looked at her, really looked. Not the housemaid, not the dreamer, but Grace, her eyes warm and fierce, her strength a quiet force. He saw her anew, her fire cutting his fog, like twilight's hush after night. He cleared his throat, the spell breaking. "You'll make it," he said. "The exam, you're something else, Grace." Her cheeks flushed, and she ducked her head, a shy smile blooming. "Thank you, Ethan." Her name on her lips felt new, a note in their quiet song. They drank in silence, the tea's warmth settling them. Grace returned to her book, her posture lighter, as if a stone had shifted. Ethan watched, his care shown in the way he lingered, refilling her cup without asking. She was more than he'd thought, not just a worker, but a woman carrying a vow that matched his scars. He stood rinsing his cup. "Get some rest," he said, voice soft. "Doctor's orders." She laughed, a bright sound that warmed his chest. "Yes, sir," she teased, scribbling again. Ethan left the kitchen, the lamp's glow fading. The mansion's weight pressed, its silence colder. Grace's words, her father, her promise, her fire, echoed. She'd bared her soul, and he'd given a piece of his. He saw her differently now, her strength a light he hadn't known he needed, like twilight's hush after night. In his room, dawn's grace spilled across the floor. Ethan sat, her laugh ringing, the mansion less empty, its silence softer, like a vow taking root. The mansion's silence pressed heavy, its vast halls a cage Ethan Walker no longer ignored. His steps carried a new rhythm, lighter, drawn to Grace, her quick hands, her soft hum. Her confession, her father's fading, her vow, had cracked his walls, letting warmth seep through. Now he saw her everywhere, folding linens with care, her braid catching light. Her story was a stone in his pocket, heavy, cherished. Morning light spilled into the kitchen, sharp against the counter. Grace had left for the day, her shift done, but Ethan lingered, eyes on her textbook, open to a heart diagram. He smiled, private and small, and placed a tin of jasmine tea beside it, its scent sharp, a quiet gift. The butler's keys jingled faintly down the hall, the mansion stirring as Ethan walked away, its portraits watching, too many for one man's grief. He retreated to his study, the act of giving a step toward something new, his wealth honed by years of deals, stirring with new purpose. Lila, passing with a broom, caught sight of the tin. "Spoiling her, are you?" she teased, smirking at Ethan in the hall. He shrugged, cheeks warm, and moved on, her words trailing him. That evening, Ethan found Grace in the garden, studying under an oak, her books spread on the grass. The dust settled like a quiet vow, softening her tired edges. A gardener clipped hedges beyond the oak, his shears a faint rhythm as Ethan approached. Grace didn't see him, her pencil scratching notes, her brow furrowed. He paused, holding a peach, its scent sweet and cool from the kitchen. "Grace," he said, voice low. She looked up, startled, then smiled. "Ethan." Her eyes flicked to the peach, curious. "Snack?" He offered it, sitting beside her, the grass cool beneath them. Their fingers brushed as she took it, a spark that stopped them both. The air thickened, charged, her gaze meeting his, wide and searching. For a moment the world was their hands, the warmth of skin, a silent truth humming. Ethan's heart raced. He saw his fiancée's hand, cold, frail in the hospital. But Grace's was alive, strong. The memory didn't cut, it softened, fading in her presence. He cleared his throat, looking away. "Sorry," he mumbled, though he wasn't. Grace shook her head, a small smile breaking. "It's okay." Her voice was soft, a vow in itself. She bit into the peach, juice catching her chin, and laughed, wiping it. They sat, the dusk wrapping them, her laughter easing the tension. Grace spoke, voice low. "I send money home, every paycheck. My mom, my brothers, they need it." She paused, peach in hand. "I want to help people like him," she added, her father's face in her eyes, a dream beyond the exam. She looked at Ethan, testing his response. "That's why I'm here, not just the books." Ethan nodded, his chest tight. Her sacrifice, her vision, echoed his own buried heart. He leaned closer, elbows on the grass. "You're doing more than most," he said. "They're lucky." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked it away, returning to her notes. Ethan watched, his care shown in the way he stayed, offering another peach from his pocket. Her strength, her fire. He felt it, not in words but in her constant hands, her quiet fight. The next morning he left a desk lamp by her textbook in the kitchen, its light softer than the harsh bulb. Grace found it at midnight, back in the kitchen, her gasp audible as Ethan entered, kettle in hand. The lamp glowed like a constant beacon, framing her. "Ethan," she said, half scolding, half delighted. "You're too much." "Hardly," he said, grinning, pouring tea. "You need to see those pages." She laughed, bright and free, and they drank, the night folding around them. Ethan watched her work, her pencil flying, and felt his heart stir, a warmth tied to a memory. His fiancée's hope now echoed in Grace's fight. The touch in the garden lingered, her hand on the peach, a sign his heart was waking, unnoticed until now. He stood rinsing his cup. "Don't stay up too late," he said, voice rough with feeling. "I won't," Grace replied, already scribbling, her smile lingering. Ethan left the kitchen, the lamp's glow fading. As he climbed the stairs, the mansion's weight pressed harder, its silence too vast. Grace's words, her family, her sacrifice, her dream of helping others, echoed, weaving into his own loss. In his room, the city's first lights blinked beyond the window, and he sat, her laughter ringing. The touch, her strength, her fire, it was more than admiration now, a pull he couldn't name, like a dawn breaking clear. The mansion felt less like home, its walls too cold, and he wondered what else his wealth could build. The mansion's corridors stretched too wide, their vastness a weight Ethan could no longer bear. Grace's presence warmed them, her hum, her steady hands, but the walls loomed too grand for his solitary grief. He sought her out, drawn to her resolve, her textbook pages now a map of her vow. Tonight he found her in the garden, under an oak's sprawling shade, her books spread on the grass. The dusk settled like a soft promise, her silhouette sharp against the fading light. A maid's broom swept softly beyond the garden, the mansion humming as Layla passed. Grace didn't hear him approach, her pencil idle, a letter from her mother tucked beside her textbook. Her steps had been slow, heavy as dusk's quiet fall, her exam weeks away, the pressure etching her face. The letter, her mother's handwriting, spoke of gratitude, her brother's schooling funded, urging Grace to rest. Ethan paused, 2 apples in hand, their crispness cool. "Grace," he said, voice low. She looked up, startled, then smiled. "Ethan." Her eyes flicked to the apples, curious. "Snack?" He sat beside her, offering one, the grass dewed beneath them. She took it, their hands brushing, a quiet spark. Lila paused at the garden's edge, her broom still, a knowing smile as she saw Ethan's apple offered to Grace. They ate, the apple's snap breaking the silence, juice catching her chin. She laughed, wiping it, the letter's words grounding her family's weight. Ethan watched, his gaze soft. "You're pushing too hard," he said, voice gentle but firm. "Work, studying, sending money home. When do you breathe?" Grace shrugged, biting into her apple. After the exam. Her tone was stubborn, but it wavered, a reed bending. It's close now. I can't stop. He leaned closer, elbows on the grass. You can't help them if you break, Grace. The words were blunt, born of worry. He saw her father in her strain, her vow burning too bright. Her gaze flicked up, sharp, then softened. I know, she whispered, but I'm so close. The letter rustled, her mother's words a quiet echo. Ethan's chest tightened. Her resolve, her sacrifice. He felt it in her steady hands, not just her words. An idea mulled for days surfaced. What if I helped, he said, voice low. Exam fees, books, whatever you need. Grace froze, apple halfway to her lips. Ethan, no. Her voice was firm, pride flaring. I've always done this myself. It's not pity, he said quickly, meeting her eyes. It's belief. In you. His heart raced, the words raw. He took her apple core, setting it aside, his care clear in the small act. You're doing something extraordinary. Let me help. Her lips parted, silent. The dusk deepened, the oak's leaves rustling. She set her apple down, hands folding tightly. Why? She asked, voice barely audible. Why me? Ethan swallowed, chest tight. Because you're my light, he thought. Instead, he said, because you're worth it, and I can. Grace's eyes glistened, pride warring with need. She glanced at the letter, her mother's words, then back at him. Okay, she said, voice small. But I'll pay you back, somehow. He smiled, relief flooding him. Deal. The word was a vow, sealing something new. They sat, the garden wrapping them, her laugh returning as he teased her about her messy notes. They work, she protested, swatting his arm, their ease blooming like dusk's quiet flowers. They talked, her brother's pranks, his old college days, words flowing free. Grace paused, apple in hand. I want to do more, she said softly, for others like them, but doubt crept in. One evening, back in the garden, Grace paused, eyes distant. Am I a burden? She asked, her voice trembling, a flicker of doubt lingering despite her exam's nearness. To you, to them? Her hand brushed the letter, her fear bare. Ethan's heart sank. Never, he said, leaning closer. You're carrying them, Grace, and you're letting me carry a piece. That's trust. He offered another apple, his gesture constant, his belief in her clear. Her eyes met his, wide and searching, the world stilling. Her voice steadied, her hand lingering near his, a quiet bridge. She nodded, returning to her book, but her smile was lighter. The letter's weight eased. Ethan stood, brushing grass from his knees. Get some rest, he said, voice rough. You've got this. Grace laughed, bright. Yes, sir, she teased, scribbling again. He left the garden, the oak's shade fading. The mansion's corridors stretched too wide, their silence a reminder of what he might leave behind. Grace's question, am I a burden, echoed, her trust healing her fear, but opening a deeper rift. She doubted her worth, a crack in a constant heart. In his room, the city's lights blinked, and Ethan sat, her laugh, her voice, her resolve warming his chest. The mansion felt less like home, and his heart, once hollow, beat with hers. The kitchen glowed warm, its lamp a soft glow. Grace sat at the counter, textbook open, a letter, acceptance to her medical program, tucked beside it, its seal broken. Her eyes, heavy as dusk's quiet fall, stared past the pages, her braid loose, strands framing her face. Ethan entered, kettle in hand, his heart lifting at her presence, now a melody he knew by heart. The mansion's vast halls loomed beyond, their silence a weight he felt more each day. Tonight, Grace's stillness stirred unease, like a vow held too long. Tea? He asked, voice low, filling the kettle. The ritual grounded them, a thread through the mansion's hush. Grace nodded, a small smile flickering. Please. Her voice was strained, thin as fading light. He poured, the tea's sharp scent rising, the cup's weight settling his hands as he slid it across. Sitting opposite, he studied her, lines carved deeper, shoulders hunched. Her exam was won, the letter of victory, but a shadow pressed her resolve. You're quiet, he said, sipping his tea, its warmth steadying him. She traced her cup's rim, eyes distant. The clock ticked past midnight, constant as a pulse. Her fingers drifted to her pocket, pulling out a faded photograph. Her father, his warm eyes mirroring hers. She held it, voice trembling. What if I fail? The words spilled, raw and fast. The program, my family, his memory. What if I'm not enough? My brother's schooling depends on me, she whispered, clutching the photograph, her vow heavier. Ethan's heart clenched, her fear echoing his own buried doubts. He set his cup down, the clink sharp. "Grace," he said, voice firm but warm, "you're more than enough. You've carried so much. Your family, your vow. You're in, Grace. That's strength." Her eyes flicked to his, wide and glistening, searching. She clutched the photograph, her father's face constant in the lamplight. "But it's heavy," she whispered. "Every night I hear him, his cough, his hands. I swore I'd make it right. What if I can't?" He saw her then, the girl who'd lost too much, her vow a stone she bore. His fiancé's fading voice stirred, his failure to save her. But Grace's fight dulled the ache, her strength already lifting the weight of his loss. "You're not failing," he said, leaning closer. "You're fighting, he'd see that." His gaze held hers, a quiet offer. Grace's lips parted, her voice trembling. "You don't know," she said, raw. "My mom, my brothers, they need me. I'm so tired, Ethan." The words cut, her vulnerability a blade. He wanted to hold her, to carry her weight, but he waited, his presence constant. "I know tired," he said, voice rough. "I know ghosts. My fiancé. I thought I'd never move past her. Then you came." The words slipped, rawer than he meant, and he froze, pulse quickening. Grace's breath caught, her eyes wide. The lamp's glow held them, the world narrowing to their shared silence. Her hand holding the photograph rested near the counter, the space humming. "You've helped me," she whispered, "but I'm scared. Of failing, of losing, of this." Her gaze lingered on him, her meaning clear. Ethan's pulse quickened. He reached across, his hand constant on her shoulder, warm and sure, her photograph before them. She leaned into the touch, a quiet surrender, their grief and hope entwined like dusk's quiet threads. "You're not alone," he said, voice low, each word deliberate. "These nights you've made me whole again. You're not failing, Grace. You're saving me." Her voice broke, a soft sob muffled as she covered her mouth, eyes glistening. Ethan kept his hand on her shoulder, his care clear in his constant touch. Their gazes locked, constant as a dawn's first light. Love humming, fragile but true. "I'm scared," she whispered, voice clear now. "But I'm here, with you." He smiled, small but real. "Me too." His hand lingered, a quiet promise. They sat, the silence singing. Grace's breathing steadied, her eyes drying. She tucked the photograph away, returning to her book. But the air was lighter, like rain's quiet end. Ethan stayed, refilling her cup, the tea's scent grounding them, his presence a vow. Later, over tea, they spoke softly, a dream of a clinic, free for those like her father, his fiancé. "We could do it," Grace said, eyes bright, her small savings already set aside for their dream. Ethan nodded, his old business instincts stirring. His wealth, once for deals, now a tool for their clinic, the mansion's walls too cold for their future. Lila, passing the kitchen, nudged Ethan's arm with a knowing grin, her eyes on Grace. Ethan left, the lamp's glow fading, the mansion's walls pressed, no too vast. Grace's fear, their touch, the clinic's seed. It was his healing, a heart no longer hollow, like a path to an unexpected home. In his room, the city's lights blinked, her resolve burning in his chest. Dawn broke over the city, its light soft as a gentle vow. The Walker and Miller Free Clinic stood simple, brick walls warmed by morning. Grace moved inside, white coat crisp, stethoscope constant. Her hands, once rough from labor, now tracing a chart. Years of late nights and hospital rounds had shaped her, her vow a doctor's oath. Ethan watched from the doorway, heart full, as patients entered. Immigrants, workers, faces like her father's. Lila, now a volunteer, ushered them in, her smile familiar. "Told you she'd shine," she whispered to Ethan, nodding at Grace. The mansion was gone, sold, its wealth poured into this haven. Maria, the old cook, had sent a basket of bread for the opening, her note warm with pride. Grace had become a doctor, her resolve honed through relentless study, Ethan's faith a bridge they'd crossed. She'd funded the clinic's first supplies, her first paycheck small, but hers. "I told you I'd pay you back," she'd said, grinning, her independence fierce. Now they stood together, love and purpose entwined, their wounds shared like stones smoothed by rain. Grace caught his gaze, her smile warm, the same that had undone him. "Ready?" she asked, voice constant, a flicker of nerves beneath. "Always," Ethan said, stepping closer. His hand rested on her arm, a ritual born of trust, the touch grounding them. Their grief and hope sang softly, a constant note. The first patient, an older woman, sat before Grace. "Chest pain," she said, voice thick. Grace listened, stethoscope gliding, questions kind but sharp. Ethan watched, pride swelling. Her father's photograph rested in the office. Placed that morning, a quiet closure, his eyes watching her heal. Ethan saw his fiance's hope in Grace's hands. No longer a ghost, but a light carried forward. Outside, the waiting room hummed, children laughing, parents whispering. Grace's brothers had visited days before, their pride easing her old fear of being a burden. Ethan moved among the patients, offering water, his presence calm. His wealth, once a shield, now built futures, as Grace had built his. Grace emerged, scribbling notes. "Lung infection," she said, glancing at Ethan. "Antibiotics. She'll be fine." Her voice held relief, a small victory. He nodded, warmth spreading. "You're saving them," he said low, "for her alone." "We are," she corrected, her hand brushing his wrist, a spark like their first touch. The clinic faded, their love a current, deep as a constant pulse. No grand vows, just eyes meeting, hearts aligned. They worked through the morning, Grace with patience, Ethan with Lila, their rhythms seamless. Between tasks, they stole glances, their bond a quiet strength. No drama, just arms brushing, a dream born in a kitchen, now real. The clinic was their vow. To her father, his fiancé, the faces they served. By noon, the crowd thinned. Grace leaned against the counter, exhaustion softened by joy. Ethan passed her water, their fingers touching. "You're a natural," he said, voice rough with feeling. "Took years," she said, sipping, her smile bright. "And you." His heart tightened. Those nights, her books, her resolve, his hollow heart, had led here. "You saved me first," he said, a whisper. Grace's eyes softened. She reached for his arm, her touch constant, warm, sure. "We saved each other," she said, voice a vow. The world narrowed to their breath, the clinic humming around them. They stood, dawn's light wrapping them like a soft dawn. Patience moved past, life flowing. But this moment was theirs, a peace hard-won, not perfect but shared. Her father, his fiancé. Their shadows lingered, but they no longer ruled. Together they'd built this haven, a home for their hearts. Grace returned to her charts, her touch lingering on his arm. Ethan watched, his chest light, an exhale after years held tight. Lila caught his eye, smirking, and he smiled unashamed. The clinic's doors opened, more faces entering, and they stepped forward, side by side. Their love a quiet fire, their future a tender dawn. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can be found in the most surprising moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Love Story. We bring you stories that touch the soul, renew your belief in kindness, and highlight what's truly important in life.